Do you want to know why some people aren't calm? Well, you're not alone. I know many of us know people who seem to struggle with getting a hold of themselves. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about calmness. So in this video, we're going to talk about calmness and why people struggle to find their calmness. There are some myths that some people believe, encouraging them to fall off the calmness cliff time and time again. But there are things that we can do, so I'd also like to spend a little bit of time sharing with you some key things that you can do to find more calmness. And at the end of this video, I also have a free gift for you that will help you improve your calmness too. There are some people who just explode at the drop of a hat, and they struggle. There are myths about calmness. Some people think that everybody can get calm the same way. And that's not exactly true. Even though I teach calmness, I usually teach principles of calmness so that people can hopefully adapt some skills that personally fit them. I had a conversation the other day after a conference that I was speaking at with a dad. And he's raised multiple children. And he said, Nicholeen, I go from front brain to back brain lightning fast. How do I stop myself from doing that? He's like, I feel like I can't fix this. I have tried to become calm, and no matter how much I tell myself be calm, I just hit a point where I just boom, trigger all the way to the back, and I feel like I can't do it. So I said to him, do you believe that you can't get calm? And he's like, well, sometimes it seems like I can't, but I want to. And I said, because if you believe that you can't get calm, you will always struggle with getting calm. You're giving yourself an excuse, an out. Your brain cannot have an out. It has to know there's a destination that it has to hit. Calmness for him is a habit. He's done it so many times that he doesn't even know when it's going to occur. So the myth that he was believing was, if I want to be calm, hopefully I can get to calm. But what he didn't understand was, inside, he probably did not think that he truly could be calm. What truth that people often don't know is, do I think there's another way? If I don't think I can actually do something different, then I won't. I won't do something different. So we had a little conversation about it, and I actually gave him a tip. I said, okay, so what you need to do is you need to identify exactly what happens when you are starting to feel like you are not going to be calm. I know it seems lightning fast, like there's no way to stop it, but it could be that there is something you do. There might be a thought that you think. There might be, your fists clench for a second, or your face, your chin goes back into your neck or something. Like, is there something that you do? See if you can identify that. And if you can identify that, then you can use that as a trigger. Right now, there is something that you say in your head. You think it every time, or you do something and it triggers you to go to that back brain. Now, I know that there are some people who maybe struggle with oppositional defiant disorder or attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder that really do struggle with calmness, or some people, that are bipolar, have personality disorder. Sometimes they have moments where it just seems like they snap and they don't even remember what happened. It is true that they went to back brain, and it is true that you can form some pretty quick pathways to get to your back brain. But I also know that you can change those pathways, but you have to habit train yourself to do it. So whatever the trigger is that usually leads you to back brain, you have to identify it and then give it another action. So now I have this trigger, same trigger. I'm thinking this thought, and then I say, wait, no, that's the thought. That is the thought, that is the trouble thought. So now I'm going to replace it with this thought, and I'm going to tell myself, I can be calm. This is okay. Just take a deep breath, right? I can give myself instruction to move forward from there. Now, if you've subscribed to this channel, you know I talk a lot about calmness, but I want to share some myths about calmness right now that I have not shared before. Myth number one about calmness is that if you surround yourself with things that are calm, like candles and good smells and cushy couches and soft music, then you will be calm. That's actually a myth. Calmness is something that happens on the inside. It's something that is actually chosen. Also, calmness is something that can be chemical too. So there are certain chemicals in the brain that can lead to calmness. The chemical serotonin acts as a calming agent to your brain when it is released, and sometimes eating certain things like eggs and turkey and those kinds of things can actually create a chemical release in your brain that leads to calmness. But it's a kind of a synthetic calmness because you didn't actually choose to get calm. And so the problem that you might have been experiencing when you started to eat that turkey sandwich may seem like not as big of a deal now, but what happens when you remember about the problem later is the anxiety or the stress going to come back. It could. So hopefully if you end up having a chemical release, which can happen after you've had an endorphin release too. If you were just angry, you've had all these endorphins firing, there can be a chemical relax that happens in the brain about 20 minutes later as well. Hopefully at that point you take the moment to go back and say, okay, what was my original problem? Now I'm more level-headed. Can I solve it now? So that we don't end up going back to that situation where we were not choosing calmness when we could have. So choosing calmness is possible. Surrounding yourself with things that are calm or people that are calm might be able to help you a little bit, but usually you have to decide to focus on the calm in some way in order to actually experience it. It isn't something that generally happens to you unless there is a chemical response that happens in the brain. A lot of people think too, and this is a myth, that I'll get calm just as soon as I let everything out. As soon as I yell it all out or I tell it all out, then I'll be able to be calm. There's a little bit of truth there because people want to be understood. When you feel like somebody fully understands, or when you feel like you've finally organized all the pieces that are in your head because you had to get them out of your mouth, then sometimes that can bring you a little bit of peace. But usually the calmness that a person feels after they yell it all or dump all of their emotions on another person is just that chemical calm that comes after an endorphin release has occurred. So it's not actual calmness that was chosen. There is a difference between those things. If you want to have the kind of calmness where you can choose it at any moment, the real true calmness is something that you have to try to work on. The definition of calmness by William Jordan, written in his essay, The Majesty of Calmness, is this: calmness is the rarest quality in human life. It is the poise of a great nature in harmony with itself and its ideals. It is singleness of purpose, absolute confidence, conscious power, ready to be focused in an instant to meet any crisis. Now, that wasn't his whole paper or his whole definition, but enough pieces that hopefully give you the idea that calmness is a type of power that you choose. If it's ready to be focused in an instant to meet any crisis, then what that means is you have to have calmness with you all the time. It's not something that happens to you, which is why I'm suggesting that the chemical calms that come or the situational calms that are around us aren't true calmness, because those are things that are extrinsically happening to us instead of us choosing the calmness for ourselves and being ready to be focused and calm no matter what comes our way. But it takes practice to work on your calmness. In fact, there are skills for focusing on calmness that are simple but are very underutilized. Something as simple as taking a deep breath is really great at calmness. Not only does it help your brain function and your chemicals get to a calmer place, but it also engages the prefrontal cortex by telling yourself to focus on that breathing. So just breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, ends up creating a situation where you are now focusing on the breathing and can start thinking again so that you can choose calmness. Just choosing to go to front brain is a step toward calmness. Analyzing yourself is another really important part of calmness. Knowing how your posture is when you're calm and what it's like when you're not calm, and what your voice is like when it's calm versus when you're not calm, and what type of a voice or posture that you could actually use to remind yourself to get calm, to take the deep breaths, to do the planning and the thinking. Making sure that you are able to analyze yourself and that you've done some proactive analysis can help keep you calm in the moment. Another big thing is asking yourself the right types of questions. So if you want to actually choose calmness, sometimes in your head you have to undo some lies that you might be wanting to believe. Some people that are not calm are stressed, anxious, worried. They might be telling themselves things like, I can't do this, not again. But if instead, when they had that trigger moment of, I can't do this, they say to themselves, that's my trigger. That is the trigger to either go to calmness or to lose control. Can I really not do this? How many times have I chosen calmness now? Many times. I practiced it just the other day. I can choose calmness and I can do this. I've done it many times before. It may be hard, but I can do this. Or I might ask myself a question. Do I really need to do this on my own? Or is there someone that could help me so that I don't lose control right now? Maybe that's the solution initially, to have a buddy help you get to that place of calmness until you can get there on your own by habit. Calmness is powerful. When a person understands true calmness, they truly get the power of calm. Now, I promised you a gift at the end of this video. Here it is. I have a calm parenting toolkit that is a mini course to help you understand calmness. It will help you learn 10 tools that you can use in some of the most difficult situations. It's not an exhaustive resource for learning all of the self-government skills that I have. In fact, I even have other trainings on calmness, but it will be a good start for you to see if you can allow yourself to develop some of the skills and habits of calmness too. So in the description below this video, there is a link that says teachselfgov.com/toolkit. If you type that in or click on the link below, then you can have the Calm Parenting Toolkit for free. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.